The silver shuttle glinted in the morning sun as it descended toward the landing pad at the North American Research Institute. Inside, Zara pressed her face against the viewing port, her large violet eyes wide with excitement. After 3 years of applications and preparation, she was finally here. Earth. The planet of humans. Zara smoothed down her regulation uniform and checked that her translator was working correctly. As the youngest xenobiologist ever selected for the Niluvian Human Exchange Program, she could not afford any mistakes. Her people had made contact with humans only 15 years ago, and this was the first official cultural exchange program. Between the species, the shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss. Zara took a deep breath of Earth air, finding it rich with unfamiliar scents. A small group of humans waited on the landing pad. They looked so strange to her, their skin in various shades of brown and pink, their bodies covered in fabric rather than the protective film Niluvians preferred. A tall man with light brown hair and blue eyes stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth, Dr. Zara. I'm Dr. Alan Carter, head of reproductive biology here at the Institute." Zara performed the traditional Niluvian greeting, a wave of her 6-fingered hand that emitted a faint blue glow. "Thank you for accepting me. Into your research team, Dr. Carter. I look forward to our exchange of knowledge." Alan smiled, revealing flat white teeth that looked nothing like the translucent points in Zara's mouth. "Please, call me Alan. We're pretty informal here." The human guided her through a series of buildings, introducing her to various staff members, whose names Zara tried to memorize. The human stared at her silvery skin and the faint patterns that pulsed beneath it, but most tried to hide their curiosity. "This will be your lab space," Alan said, leading her into a bright room filled with equipment. "We've set it up based on the specifications your government sent over, but please let us know if you need anything else." Zara nodded, pleased by the effort they had made. "This is more than adequate. When can we begin our comparative studies?" Alan checked the time on his wrist device. "How about we get you settled in your quarters first? You must be tired after your journey. We can start fresh tomorrow morning." "Niluvians require less rest than humans," Zara replied, "but I would appreciate time to organize my research materials." Later that evening, Zara sat in her assigned living quarters, reviewing her mission objectives on her data tablet. As a xenobiologist, specializing in reproductive systems, her primary goal was to study human reproduction methods and share information about Niluvian processes. The differences were vast. Humans reproduced through a physical, genetic exchange that required direct bodily contact, a messy, unpredictable process that Niluvians had evolved beyond millions of years ago. Her people reproduced through a complex bioelectric sharing of consciousness between compatible partners, creating new life through pure energy transfer into growth chambers. It was precise, controlled, and considered far superior. Yet human reproduction fascinated her. Their method, while primitive, had produced an incredible diversity of genetic combinations. The Niluvian population, despite their advanced technology, had become increasingly uniform over the millennia. A soft chime indicated someone at her door. Zara opened it to find a human female with curly dark hair. "Hi there. I'm Diane Rogers, one of the research assistants. Alan asked me to check if you need anything and invite you to dinner with some of the team." Zara hesitated. She had planned to continue reviewing her notes, but perhaps this was an opportunity to observe human social interactions. "Yes, I will join you. Thank you for the invitation." The research center's dining hall buzzed with conversation. Zara followed Diane to a table where Alan sat with several other humans. Their food looked strange, solid masses in various colors, nothing like the nutrient solutions Niluvians consumed. Alan stood when they approached. "Zara, glad you could join us." "Everyone, this is Dr. Zara, our visiting xenobiologist from Niluvia." The humans greeted her with varying degrees of enthusiasm and curiosity. A server brought Zara a specially prepared nutrient solution in a glass container. She noticed the humans watching as she dipped her fingers into the liquid, absorbing the nutrients directly through her skin. "So," said a man introduced as Dr. Peter Simmons, "I understand Niluvians reproduce very differently from humans." Alan gave Peter a warning look. Maybe we should ease into the heavy science talk. Zara waved her hand dismissively, sending ripples of blue light across her fingers. "It is why I'm here, to discuss these differences. Yes, our reproduction is entirely different. We have evolved beyond the need for physical mating." "Beyond the need?" "That sounds like you think it's primitive," said Diane with a raised eyebrow. Zara realized she may have caused offense. "I apologize if my phrasing was inappropriate. It is simply different. Our method developed over millions of years of evolution." Alan leaned forward, his eyes bright with interest. "I've read the preliminary reports, but I'd love to hear you. Explain it directly." Zara found herself strangely aware of Alan's gaze. She noticed details she hadn't before. The slight crinkles near his eyes, the way his hair caught the light, the broadness of his shoulders. When Niluvians choose to create new life, compatible partners enter a bioelectric trance state. Our consciousness merges, and we channel combined energy to create a new being in a growth chamber. The new consciousness forms over several months before emerging as a fully aware juvenile. "So no pregnancy, no childbirth," said another researcher. "No physical connection at all?" asked Diane. "None," confirmed Zara. "Such methods were abandoned ages ago as inefficient and unnecessarily risky." Alan smiled. "Yet here we humans are, still doing things the old-fashioned way." Something in his smile made Zara feel an unfamiliar sensation in her chest, a quickening of her pulse. She had studied human biology extensively, but nothing had prepared her for the subtle reactions of her own body to these aliens. Later, as Alan walked her back to her quarters, Zara found herself unusually aware of the small distance between them as they walked. "Tomorrow we'll start with a tour of the reproductive biology lab," Alan said. "We have some fascinating research underway on hormonal influences that I think might interest you." "I look forward to it," Zara replied, noticing how her voice sounded. Different, softer perhaps, dotted her door. Alan paused. "Zara, I want you to know that I'm truly honored to work with you. The exchange of knowledge between our species is important, but I hope we can also become friends during your time here." Friends. The concept existed among Niluvians, but not in the way humans seem to experience it. Zara felt something shift inside her, like ancient machinery coming to life. "I would like that, Alan." After he left, Zara placed her hand against her chest, feeling the strange new rhythm there. She had come to study human reproduction as a scientific curiosity, but standing in her quarters on this alien world, she sensed that she might learn far more than she had planned, and in ways she never expected. 2 weeks passed quickly as Zara settled into her research at the North American Research Institute. Each morning, she joined Alan in the lab, studying human reproductive cells under powerful microscopes and comparing notes on the differences between their species. Each afternoon, they met with other scientists to share findings and plan new experiments. Today, Zara stood beside Alan as he explained a display of human embryo development. The images showed the progression from a single cell to a fully formed fetus. "The most remarkable thing," Alan said, "is how much happens in just 9 months. From 2 cells merging to a complete human being." Zara leaned closer to the display, her silvery skin reflecting the light. "In Niluvian reproduction, consciousness forms first, then the physical body grows around it, the opposite of your process." Alan watched her with interest. "Which do you think is better?" Zara paused. 2 weeks ago, she would have answered without hesitation, that the Niluvian method was superior. Now she was less certain. Different, she said finally. Not better or worse, just different, Alan smiled. Zara noticed that same strange flutter in her chest that happened whenever he smiled at her. According to her research, humans called this feeling attraction. Niluvians weren't supposed to experience such primitive responses. Are you still coming to the wedding tomorrow? Alan asked as they packed up for the day. Yes, I am interested to observe this human pair bonding ritual. It's not just a ritual to study, Zara. It's my brother's wedding. Try to enjoy it too. Zara nodded. I will try to experience it as a participant, not just an observer. That night, in her quarters, Zara prepared for the wedding. She stood before the mirror, examining her appearance. For the occasion, she had synthesized a special formal covering that resembled a human dress, though made from materials comfortable for her sensitive skin. The blue fabric complemented the silvery tones of her complexion. Or concerning, then, her appearance were the strange physical symptoms she had been experiencing. Increased heart rate, skin temperature fluctuations, hormonal changes that made no sense for a Niluvian. Zara had discreetly run tests on herself, but found no explanation. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Diane. Wow, you look amazing, Diane said, entering the room. The blue really works with your coloring. Thank you. Is this appropriate for a wedding? Perfect. Alan's going to be knocked out when he sees you. Zara tilted her head. I hope not. Unconsciousness would disrupt the ceremony. Diane laughed. It's just an expression. It means he'll think you look beautiful. Oh, Zara felt that strange flutter again. Do you think he will? Diane gave her a knowing look. Definitely. You two have been spending a lot of time together. For research purposes, Zara said quickly. Sure. Just be careful, okay? Interspecies relationships can get complicated. The next day, Alan picked up Zara in what he called his old car. The vehicle rumbled and vibrated in ways the smooth Niluvian transport pods never did. Zara found it oddly enjoyable. You look beautiful, Alan said as she settled into the passenger seat. Thank you. You also look aesthetically pleasing. Zara noticed Alan's formal attire highlighted the broadness of his shoulders, and the color brought out his eyes. The wedding took place in a garden filled with flowers. Zara watched with fascination as Alan's brother Greg waited nervously at the front. When his bride Olivia appeared, walking slowly toward him in a white dress, Zara sensed the emotional energy between them. It reminded her of the bioelectric fields Niluvians generated during their reproduction process, but somehow more raw and uncontrolled. During the ceremony, the couple exchanged vows and rings. Zara listened carefully to their promises of lifelong commitment. Do Niluvians have anything like marriage? Alan whispered to her. We form partnerships for reproduction or research, but not permanent pair bonds, she replied quietly. Our lifespan is nearly 300 of your years. Permanent pairing is considered impractical. Alan looked surprised. So you never stay with one partner for life? Some do, but it is uncommon and not celebrated as you celebrate it here. After the ceremony came what humans called the reception. There was food, music, and dancing. Zara observed the complex social interactions with interest. Families mingled, sharing stories and laughter. Couples held each other close as they moved to the music. Would you like to dance? Alan asked, extending his hand to her. Zara hesitated. Physical contact between Niluvians was rare outside of scientific or medical necessity. But she was here to experience human culture, not just observe it. Yes, she said, taking his hand. His skin felt warm against hers. Alan led her to the dance floor and placed his other hand gently on her waist. Zara carefully positioned her hand on his shoulder, mimicking the other dancers. "Just follow my lead," he said softly. As they moved together to the music, Zara felt her body responding in ways she couldn't explain. Her skin tingled where they touched. Her heart beat faster. And deep inside, dormant systems seemed to awaken. "This is pleasant," she said, surprised by the truth of her words. Alan smiled down at her. "Very pleasant." Later, as the celebration continued, Alan led Zara away from the crowd to a quiet corner of the garden. The night air was cool, and stars shone overhead. "I wanted to show you this," he said, pointing to a flowering plant. "It only blooms at night for just a few hours." Zara bent to examine the delicate white flowers. "Beautiful. The equivalent plants on my world are bioluminescent." "Everything on your world sounds so advanced," Alan said. "It must seem primitive here." Zara straightened and looked at him. "Advanced does not always mean better. There is beauty in your primitive ways." They stood close in the darkness. Zara could sense Alan's increased heart rate matching her own. A new sensation swept through her, something her species hadn't experienced for millions of years. "Zara," Alan said softly, "I know this isn't part of your research, but ... He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to move away if she wished. Zara didn't move. Their lips met in what humans called a kiss. The moment their lips touched, Zara felt an electric shock run through her entire body. Not painful, but intense, like a current awakening circuits long dormant. She pulled back, startled by the sensation. "I'm sorry," Alan said quickly. "I shouldn't have—" "No," Zara interrupted. "It was unexpected, but not unwelcome." She touched her lips, confused by the lingering sensation. Something was happening to her body. Something that should be impossible. Back at the research institute the next day, Zara's fellow Naluvian scientist Zell noticed her distraction. "You seem altered," Zell said, his silver eyes narrowing. "Your bioelectric field is fluctuating abnormally." "I am fine," Zara replied, "just processing new experiences." Zell moved closer, lowering his voice. "Be careful, Zara. Our ancestors abandoned physical reproduction for good reasons. The old systems are unstable, dangerous if reactivated." "That is merely a theory," Zara said. "A theory based on historical records," Zell insisted. "Do not let yourself be corrupted by human ways. Remember your purpose here." As Zell walked away, Zara placed her hand over her heart, feeling its unfamiliar rhythm. Her purpose had been clear when she arrived on Earth. Now, everything was changing, including her own body, and she wasn't sure she wanted to stop it. Zara sat in Dr. Samantha Wells' office, nervous in a way she had never experienced before. Samantha was the medical doctor assigned to the exchange program, responsible for monitoring the health of all visiting aliens. The changes started after the wedding, Zara explained, her voice low despite the privacy of the office. "After the ... kiss." Samantha nodded, reviewing the test results on her tablet. "Your hormone levels are significantly altered from your baseline when you arrived on Earth, and there's activity in parts of your biology that were previously dormant." "Is it dangerous?" Zara asked. "I don't know enough about Niluvian physiology to say for certain," Samantha admitted. "But these changes appear to be activating systems that have been inactive in your species for a very long time. According to your own medical records, these are reproductive systems that evolved before your current bioelectric method." Zara stared at her hands. The patterns beneath her silvery skin pulsed with a new rhythm, slightly faster than normal. "Zell said it could be dangerous. Have you told Alan about this?" "No. Our research partnership would be compromised if he knew my objectivity was affected." Samantha set down her tablet and looked at Zara directly. "This isn't just about research anymore, is it?" Zara was silent for a moment. Among my people, what I am experiencing would be considered a severe regression, a failure of evolutionary progress. And what do you consider it? I don't know, Zara whispered, but I want to understand it. Later that day, Zara worked alone in the lab, examining ancient Niluvian biological records that she had requested. From her homeworld, the historical data showed something surprising. The shift from physical to bioelectric reproduction had happened relatively quickly in evolutionary terms, over just a few thousand years. The door to the lab opened, and Alan walked in. Zara quickly closed the files. "Working late?" he asked, with a smile. "Yes, just reviewing some historical data." Alan pulled up a chair beside her. "We need to talk about what happened at the wedding." Zara felt her heart rate increase. "The kiss?" "Yes, I crossed a professional boundary, and I apologize." "There is no need for apology. It was educational." Alan laughed softly. "Educational. That's not usually the reaction I hope for." "What reaction do you hope for?" "I don't know." "That? You felt something. That maybe you'd like to try it again sometime." Zara looked at him, studying the hopeful expression on his face. "I did feel something. Something unexpected." Before she could explain further, her communication device buzzed. It was a priority message from the Niluvian High Council. Zara opened it, reading quickly. "Is something wrong?" Alan asked, noticing her expression change. "The council is concerned about my latest medical report. They are ordering me to return to Niluvia immediately for evaluation." "Can they do that? Just pull you out of the exchange program?" "They can. The council has authority over all Niluvians, especially those off-world." Zara stood up, suddenly feeling trapped. "I need to think." She walked quickly to the large window overlooking the research campus. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the grounds. "What aren't you telling me, Zara?" Alan asked, joining her at the window. Zara made a decision. "The kiss triggered biological changes in me. Systems that have been dormant in Niluvians for millions of years are reactivating." Alan's eyes widened. "Because of one kiss?" "It may have been the catalyst, but I believe the changes began when I first arrived on Earth. Being around humans, around you, it's affecting me in ways no one predicted." "And the council thinks this is dangerous?" "They think it's contamination. Regression." Zara turned to face him. "But I've been studying our historical records. The shift to bioelectric reproduction wasn't natural evolution. It happened too quickly." "What are you saying?" "I believe it was an adaptation, perhaps forced by some event in our past, some crisis. That made physical reproduction too dangerous." Zara pointed to the data on her screen. "Look at this population graph. There was a massive decline just before the shift." Alan studied the graph. "A pandemic? Something that affected reproductive capability?" "Possibly. But whatever the cause, the Council has maintained for millennia that our current method is evolutionary perfection. If I'm right, it would undermine a fundamental belief of our society. And that's why they want you back." "To prevent you from discovering more." Zara nodded. "I believe so." They were interrupted by the lab door sliding open. Zell stood there, his tall frame silhouetted against the hallway lights. "The council sent me to escort you home, Zara," he said, his voice cold. "Your shuttle leaves in 2 hours." "I haven't agreed to return," Zara replied. Zell moved further into the room. "It is not a request. The changes in your biology pose a risk to all Niluvians. You will return for treatment." Alan stepped forward. "She's not going anywhere she doesn't want to go." "This does not concern you, human," Zell said dismissively. "Actually, it does," came a new voice from the doorway. An elderly human man with white hair and a lined face entered the lab. "As the head of this research institute, Any attempt to remove one of our exchange scientists without proper protocol very much concerns me. Professor Klein, Alan said with obvious relief. Professor Richard Klein walked slowly into the lab, leaning on a cane. Despite his age, his eyes were sharp and alert. The exchange agreement clearly states that any withdrawal of personnel must be approved by both governments with a 30-day notice period, Klein said, unless there is a medical emergency that our facilities cannot handle. This is a Niluvian. Matter? Zell insisted. Is your life in immediate danger, Dr. Zara? Klein asked directly. Zara straightened her posture. No, Professor. I am experiencing changes, but I am not ill or dying. Then the protocol stands, Klein said firmly. If your government wishes to withdraw you, they can file the proper request. Zell's silver eyes narrowed. You do not understand what is at stake. Perhaps not, Klein replied. But I understand coercion when I see it. Dr. Zara is a guest of Earth and this institute. She will be treated with respect. After a tense moment, Zell turned to leave. At the door, he paused. The council will not accept this delay. There will be consequences. When he was gone, Zara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Thank you, Professor Klein. Klein nodded. I've studied enough xenanthropology to recognize political pressure disguised as medical concern. He looked at the historical data still displayed on Zara's screen. Interesting research you're doing. Perhaps we should discuss it further, privately. Later that evening, in Klein's office, Zara and Alan explained their theory about Niluvian reproductive history. Klein listened carefully, then opened an old book from his shelf. Your theory aligns with something I've suspected for years. Look at these ancient Niluvian artifacts. The images showed carved symbols from long before Niluvians developed space travel. These depict birth. Physical birth, Klein said. They were discovered on a moon in your home system, but the official Niluvian explanation is that they represent a primitive species that went extinct. But you don't believe that, Zara said. I believe they're your ancestors, before whatever crisis forced the change to bioelectric reproduction. Klein closed the book. History is often rewritten by those in power to maintain control. Zara felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. Her body was changing, reconnecting with a past her people had buried. And the Niluvian Council would do anything to stop her from revealing the truth. What should I do? She asked. Continue your research, Klein said. But quietly. I'll help protect you from the Council as long as I can. Alan took Zara's hand, and this time she didn't pull away. We'll figure this out together, he promised Dot as they left Klein's office. Zara knew she was embarking on a journey far different from the scientific exchange she had planned. She was rediscovering her species' true history, and perhaps its future, through her own changing body. 3 days after the confrontation with Zell, Zara was working late in the lab when the alarm system suddenly activated. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice announced a security breach. Alan rushed into the lab. We need to leave now. The Niluvian Council sent enforcers to take you back. But Professor Klein said they couldn't. They're ignoring the agreement. Klein is trying to delay them with paperwork, but we don't have much time. Zara quickly gathered her research data and transferred it to a portable device. She followed Alan through the back exit of the research building. Outside, a car waited with its engine running. My sister Heather is helping us, Alan explained as they got into the vehicle. A woman with hair similar to Alan's was in the driver's seat. Nice to finally meet you, Zara, Heather said as she drove quickly away from the institute. Though I wish it were under better circumstances. Where are we going? Zara asked. Somewhere safe, Alan replied. Heather and her husband Paul have a cabin in the mountains. No one will look for you there. Zara looked back at the research institute, growing smaller in the distance. I never meant to cause trouble. You didn't, Alan said firmly. The Council did by trying to suppress whatever you're discovering. They drove for hours, leaving the city behind and entering forested mountain areas. Zara watched the landscape change through the window, feeling both fear and wonder. In just a few weeks on Earth, her entire life had transformed. The cabin was small but comfortable, nestled among tall trees beside a lake. Paul, Heather's husband, greeted them at the door. The pantry is stocked, and there's a generator if the power goes out, he explained. Cell reception is spotty, but there's a satellite phone for emergencies. Thank you for helping us, Zara said. Any friend of Alan's is a friend of ours, Paul replied with a kind smile. Plus, I always wanted to meet someone from another planet. Heather and Paul couldn't stay. They needed to return to their jobs to avoid suspicion. They promised to check on them in a few days. After they left, Alan showed Zara around the cabin. It's not as high-tech as you're used to, but it should be comfortable. It's perfect, Zara said, looking out at the lake, reflecting the setting sun. Peaceful. That night, they set up their research equipment on the cabin's dining table. Using the data Zara had saved, they continued investigating Niluvian reproductive history. Look at this, Zara said, pointing to a genetic analysis. The change to bioelectric reproduction coincides with genetic markers for resistance to a pathogen, a disease that affected reproductive organs. So your theory was right, Alan said. It wasn't evolution, but adaptation to survive a pandemic. Yes. And over time, as the bioelectric method became standard, the old reproductive systems became dormant. The Council reframed it as evolutionary progress, but it was actually a survival mechanism. Alan looked at her with concern. And now those systems are reactivating in you. Are you sure it's safe? I don't know, Zara admitted. But I feel alive in a way I never have before. They worked through the night, piecing together the hidden history of Niluvian reproduction. By morning, exhaustion overtook them, and they fell asleep on the couch, side by side. Zara woke first, feeling a strange cramping sensation in her abdomen. She went to the bathroom and discovered something shocking. She was bleeding. For a moment, panic seized her. Then she remembered her research on human females. She was experiencing a menstrual cycle, something no Niluvian had experienced for millions of years. When Alan woke, he found Zara sitting by the lake, deep in thought. Everything okay? He asked, joining her. I began a menstrual cycle this morning, she said directly. Alan's eyes widened. Is that even possible? Apparently so. My body is fully reconnecting with reproductive systems that have been dormant for eons. She looked at him. I should be terrified, but instead I feel wonder. Alan took her hand. This is why the Council is so afraid. If others knew this was possible, it would challenge everything they've taught about our superior evolution, Zara finished. But there's more, Alan. I've been analyzing the population data. The Niluvians are slowly dying out. What? How? Our bioelectric reproduction is precise and controlled, but it lacks the genetic diversity that sexual reproduction provides. Each generation becomes slightly less viable than the last. The Council has hidden this by extending our lifespans through technology, but the decline is real. Alan processed this information. So your primitive changes might actually save your species, possibly, if the Council doesn't silence me first. Their conversation was interrupted by a distant sound, the whine of an aircraft. They looked up to see a Niluvian shuttle descending toward the lake. They found us, Alan said, pulling Zara to her feet. We need to hide. They ran back toward the cabin, but before they reached it, 3 tall figures appeared, blocking their path. Niluvian, enforcers in dark uniforms. Dr. Zara, you will return with us immediately, the lead enforcer said. The council has declared you medically unfit. Alan stepped in front of Zara. She's not going anywhere. The enforcer raised a device that emitted a pulse of energy, knocking Alan to the ground. Alan! Zara knelt beside him. He was conscious, but unable to move. The paralysis is temporary, the enforcer said. Do not resist, Dr. Zara. Zara stood slowly, rage building inside her. Something was happening to her body again. The patterns beneath her skin pulsed brightly, and she felt energy gathering within her. You hide the truth from our people, she said, her voice stronger than she had ever heard it. You know our species is dying. The enforcers hesitated, exchanging glances. That is classified information, the leader said. How did you? The same way I know our bioelectric reproduction was never evolutionary progress, but a desperate response to a pandemic. Zara took a step toward them. You fear what I've become because it threatens your control. Your judgment is impaired by contamination, the enforcer insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Suddenly, Zara felt a surge of energy, unlike anything she had experienced before. The bioelectric field that all Niluvians generated expanded around her, connecting with the enforcers. Without conscious decision, she was sharing her discoveries directly through the field, showing them the truth about their history, the population decline, and the potential renewal through reactivating their dormant biology. The enforcers staggered back, overwhelmed by the direct mental connection. Their expressions changed from determination to confusion to shock. This cannot be true, one whispered. Search the historical records yourselves, Zara told them. The evidence is there if you look beyond what the council allows. The lead enforcer lowered his weapon. The council said you were damaged, dangerous. But this ... this feels like truth. The paralysis was wearing off, and Alan managed to sit up. Are you okay? He asked Zara. She nodded, though the energy expenditure had left her weak. I think I just experienced a new kind of reproduction, sharing information directly through our bioelectric field. I've never heard of anyone doing that before. The lead enforcer stepped forward. The council didn't send us just to retrieve you. They sent us to eliminate all evidence of your research. They fear it more than they admit. Will you still follow those orders? Zara asked. The enforcer looked at his companions, then back at Zara. No, some truths cannot be buried, no matter who gives the orders. As the sun set over the lake, Zara and Alan sat with the 3 Niluvian enforcers, sharing everything they had discovered. A new alliance was forming, one that might challenge the council and change the future of an entire species. 1 year later, Zara stood before the Niluvian High Council in the grand chamber on her homeworld. The room was silent as Elder Thos, the council leader, reviewed the evidence she had presented. These claims are extraordinary, Thos said finally. You believe our entire approach to reproduction is flawed? Not flawed, Zara replied carefully. It was necessary at the time, but now it threatens our future. Behind her stood Alan, Professor Klein, and the 3 enforcers who had joined there. Cause. Months of research had confirmed everything Zara had discovered. The bioelectric reproduction method that Niluvians had used for millions of years was slowly leading to their extinction. Our population has declined by 12% over the last 10,000 years, Zara continued, displaying the data on the large screen. Each generation has less genetic diversity than the last. The bioelectric method simply cannot create the variations needed for long-term survival. Elder Thos looked troubled. Even if this is true, what do you propose? A return to primitive biological methods? Our bodies have evolved beyond that capacity. Not evolved, Zara corrected. Adapted, and what can be adapted can be readapted. She touched her abdomen gently. I am living proof. Whispers filled the chamber. Everyone knew what Zara meant. News of her pregnancy had spread through Niluvian society, causing both shock and fascination. "You carry a hybrid child," those said with distaste. "Half-human, this is not a solution for our species." Alan stepped forward. "The child is a beginning, not the entire solution. Zara's research shows that dormant reproductive systems exist. In all Niluvians, they can be reactivated as hers were." Professor Klein added, "We've developed a safe method to gradually reintroduce biological reproduction among Niluvians. It would not replace bioelectric methods, but complement them, adding genetic diversity back into your population." The council members exchanged glances. Some looked intrigued, others horrified. "This would mean a complete restructuring of our society," one council member argued. "Our entire culture is built around the superiority of bioelectric reproduction." "Perhaps our culture needs to evolve," said a younger council member named Lyra. "We pride ourselves on advancement, yet we've clung to a reproductive method that is failing us because we cannot admit it is imperfect." Debate erupted in the chamber. Some Niluvians were outraged at the suggestion of returning to primitive methods. Others, particularly younger generations, were curious about reconnecting with their evolutionary heritage. Through it all, Zara stood firm. Her body had changed in ways she never imagined possible when she first arrived on Earth. Now, carrying a child within her, the first human Niluvian hybrid, she embodied the bridge between the old ways and the new possibilities. After hours of debate, Elder Thos called for silence. "This decision affects all Niluvians," he said. "We will put it to a general vote. Our people must choose their own future." In the days that followed, Zara and Alan spoke to Niluvian communities across the planet. They explained the research, answered questions, and shared their personal story. Many were skeptical, but others were hopeful about a new path forward. On the final evening before the vote, Zara and Alan walked through the crystal gardens of the capital city. The blue-green plants glowed softly in the twilight. "No matter what happens tomorrow," Alan said, "you've already changed history." Zara touched her rounded belly. "Our child will change more. She will be the first of something new." "She," Alan repeated with a smile. "You're sure it's a girl?" The medical scans confirmed it. A daughter with both our genetic codes. They sat on a bench overlooking the city lights. Zara leaned against Alan's shoulder. "When I first came to Earth, I thought human reproduction was primitive and messy," she said. "Now I understand its wisdom. The randomness, the imperfection. That's what creates strength." "Perfect systems are often the most fragile," Alan agreed. The next morning, the results of the vote were announced. By a narrow margin, the Niluvian population had voted to implement Zara's proposal, a gradual reintroduction of biological reproduction, alongside existing bioelectric methods. The council chamber was tense as Elder Thos made the official declaration. "While I personally disagree with this decision," he said stiffly, "I will respect the will of our people. The reactivation program will begin immediately for those who wish to participate." As the crowd dispersed, Lyra, the younger council member, approached. "Zara, many of us have been waiting for something like this," she confided. "A chance to reconnect with parts of ourselves we've been told to ignore. You've given us that chance." 3 months later, in a medical facility specially designed to bridge human and Niluvian technology, Zara gave birth to her daughter. The process was painful in ways she had never experienced, yet also profound beyond description. Alan held her hand throughout the labor. When it was over, the doctor placed a tiny infant in Zara's arms. The child had silvery skin with faint patterns, like her mother's, but human-like features, and a tuft of brown hair like her father's. "She's beautiful," Alan whispered, touching the baby's cheek gently. "What will you name her?" asked Samantha Wells, who had traveled from Earth to help with the delivery. Zara and Alan exchanged a look. They had discussed this for months. "Lily," Zara said, "it means rebirth and new beginnings in human culture." News of Lily's birth spread quickly across both worlds. She became a symbol of what was possible, not just between humans and Niluvians, but for all species who might learn from each other. In the months that followed, hundreds of young Niluvians volunteered for the reactivation program. Some formed partnerships with other Niluvians, while others explored relationships with humans and other compatible species. Each birth brought new genetic combinations and strengthened the Niluvian population in ways they're perfect reproduction. Never could. 1 year after Lily's birth, Zara stood with Alan on the observation deck of the North American Research Institute, where they had first met. Their daughter, now walking and beginning to speak in both human and Niluvian languages, played nearby. Professor Klein joined them, moving slowly with his cane. "The Galactic Scientific Council has officially recognized your research," he told. They're recommending that all species reconsider their reproductive strategies in light of your findings." "What did Elder Tho say about that?" Alan asked with a smile. "He's still not happy," Klein chuckled. "But he can't argue with results. The Niluvian population projection has been revised upward for the first time in 5,000 years. Zara watched her daughter examining a flower with intense curiosity. "Humans were never primitive," she said thoughtfully. "Your reproduction methods preserved something essential that my people nearly lost forever. And your technology offers possibilities we're only beginning to explore," Alan replied. "Together, we're better than either of us alone." As the sun set over the research campus, Lily ran to her parents, her small body glowing faintly with the bioelectric patterns of her Niluvian heritage, while her laugh echoed with human joy. She was neither human nor Niluvian, but something new, a bridge between worlds and a promise for the future. Zara lifted her daughter into her arms, feeling the warmth of the small body against her own. What had begun as a scientific exchange had become so much more. She had come to study human reproduction and ended up experiencing it herself, transforming not just her own life, but the future of her entire species. In embracing what her people had once considered primitive, she had discovered something profound. True advancement came not from rejecting the past, but from integrating it with the future, combining the wisdom of biology with the potential of technology. As Lily reached out to touch both her parents' faces, the glow from her small fingers connected them in a circuit of light and love. Human and alien, past and future, united in the miracle of new life.